The studio lights died 3 seconds before Claire Bennett said Dante Vescari's name. One moment she was staring into camera, two beneath the cold white glare of the 11 o'clock broadcast, the city of Chicago glowing behind her through a wall of rain-streaked glass. The next, every monitor in the newsroom went black, not blue, not static black. In Claire's earpiece, her producer whispered, "Keep talking." Claire's fingers tightened around the financial records spread across the desk. 2 years of work, shell companies, city contracts, judges paid through foundations that did not exist. And, at the center of it all, a name she had promised herself she would speak on live television, the name of the man she believed had taken her sister. "Tonight," Claire said, forcing her voice to remain steady, "we can reveal that more than $40 million in public funds were transferred through accounts connected to..." A shape appeared behind the control room glass. Tall, motionless, dressed in black, the newsroom went silent. Even before his face caught the red emergency light, Claire knew who he was. Dante Vescari. Chicago's most feared crime boss stood behind the glass as if he owned the building, one hand resting at his side, the other holding a phone. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Claire heard him through her earpiece. "Do not say my name?" Her breath stopped. Around her, camera operators backed away from their stations. 2 security guards reached for their radios, then froze when 3 men in dark suits appeared at the newsroom entrance. Claire looked directly at Dante. "Where is my sister?" His expression did not change, but something sharpened in his eyes. "Alive." The word struck harder than a scream. Claire rose so quickly that her chair rolled backward and hit the studio wall. "You're lying. If I were lying, you would already be dead." A burst of gunfire echoed from the lobby below. The newsroom erupted. People dropped behind desks. Someone screamed. Red lights flashed as the building's security system sealed the elevators. Claire's producer grabbed her arm, but Dante's voice came again, calm beneath the chaos. "The records in front of you were planted." Claire looked down at the papers. They came from a federal source. They came from Daniel Cole, her fiancé's name, the name of the man whose body she had identified 2 years ago after a courthouse garage attack. Claire stared at Dante through the glass. "Daniel is dead." Dante stepped into the newsroom. Every person near him moved aside. Rain darkened the shoulders of his black coat. His face was composed, almost cold, but a thin line of blood marked one cuff. He crossed the studio slowly, ignoring the alarms, the shattered glass, and the frightened staff watching him. When he stopped in front of Claire, he was close enough for her to see the sleepless shadow beneath his eyes. "Daniel Cole is alive," he said, "and if you name me before midnight, he will kill you and your sister before the city realizes this broadcast was a trap." Claire wanted to strike him. She wanted to demand proof. Instead, she heard another explosion below and watched the ceiling lights flicker. Dante looked toward the stairwell. For the first time, his control slipped. Not fear, urgency. He reached for Claire but stopped before touching her. "Come with me." "No, Claire." The way he said her name made her chest tighten. Not like a stranger reading it from a file, like a man who had said it many times when she was not there. She stepped back. "You think I'm walking out of here with the man who kidnapped my sister?" "I did not kidnap Lily." "Then why do you know she's alive?" His jaw hardened. Another volley of shots cracked through the floor beneath them. One of Dantane's men shouted that the east stairwell had been breached. Dante removed his coat and placed it around Claire's shoulders. The gesture was so controlled, so intimate, that for one disorienting second she forgot the armed men, the dead screens, and the blood on his sleeve. Then he moved in front of her as the studio doors burst open. Glass exploded across the floor. Dante pulled Claire behind the anchor desk and covered her with his body, while his men returned fire toward the corridor. His hand closed around the back of her neck, firm but careful, shielding her head. "Stay down, you brought this here." "No," he said, his mouth close to her ear. "You did when you trusted a dead man," the words cut through her. A panel beneath the studio platform opened. One of Dante's men revealed a narrow steel stairway descending into darkness. Claire stared at it. "There's no tunnel under this building." Dante looked at her with a strange, almost bitter expression. "There are tunnels under half this city." He stood and held out his hand. Behind him, the newsroom burned beneath red emergency lights. Ahead, the hidden stairway disappeared beneath Chicago. Claire looked at his hand and thought of Lily. Alive, maybe. She placed her fingers in his. Dante's grip closed instantly, as if he had been waiting 2 years for permission. They descended into the darkness just as every screen in the newsroom came back to life. On each one was the same image. Claire's missing sister, bound to a chair staring into the camera, and beneath her face, a digital clock began counting down from 59 minutes. The steel door slammed shut above them. Claire heard the lock engage, then the muffled thunder of gunfire disappeared behind several feet of concrete. Only the countdown remained in her mind. 59 minutes, Lily tied to a chair, Lily staring into the camera, Lily alive. Dante pulled Claire down the narrow stairway as emergency lights flickered along the walls. The passage smelled of wet stone, rust, and old electricity. Water ran in thin lines beneath their feet, carrying fragments of dust toward the darkness ahead. Claire tore her hand from his. "Stop!" Dante kept moving. "Not here. You said my sister was safe." "She was." Claire froze. Dante turned. The 2 men following them immediately faced the opposite direction, giving their boss and Claire an illusion of privacy in a tunnel barely wide enough for 3 people. "What does that mean?" she demanded. "It means the image on those screens was not live. You recognized it. I recognized the room." Dante took the phone from inside his jacket and held it out. On the screen was a still frame from the video. Lily's hair was longer than it had been in the last photograph Claire owned. A bruise darkened one side of her face. Behind the chair stood a grey wall with a black metal pipe running vertically beside it. Claire forced herself to study the image as a journalist instead of a sister. There was no clock visible in the room. The countdown had been added over the footage. "The light," Claire whispered. Dante watched her. "It's coming from the left, but the shadow from the pipe falls in the wrong direction." The video was mirrored. Claire enlarged the image. A date had been stamped into the lower corner, partially concealed by the countdown. 3 weeks earlier, her anger shifted, but it did not disappear. So Daniel had this video for 3 weeks. Or someone working for him did. "You keep saying his name like you expect me to believe you. I expect you to survive long enough to verify it." A sharp metallic sound echoed through the tunnel behind them. One of Danton's men lifted his weapon. Danton moved Claire behind him without looking at her. His body became still, every trace of urgency replaced by a frightening calm. 3 seconds passed, then 5. A rat darted from beneath an old cable box and vanished through a broken drain. The men lowered their weapons. Claire noticed Dante's hand remained spread across her waist, not gripping, holding. He seemed to realize it at the same moment she did. His fingers tightened once, almost involuntarily, before he stepped away. "Move," he said. They continued through the passage. Claire watched him from behind. He knew the tunnel's turns without hesitation. He knew which lights were broken, which doors had rusted shut, and where the floor dropped unexpectedly beneath shallow water. This was not an escape route he had discovered tonight. It had been prepared. "For how long?" she asked. Dante did not look back. "For how long what? Have you had access beneath the station? 7 years. Why? Because television stations shape public fear. Men who understand power do not leave them unobserved." Claire felt cold despite his coat around her shoulders. "You've been inside my workplace before." "Yes. How many times?" He was silent. That silence answered too much. The tunnel opened into a wider chamber beneath an abandoned train platform. Old advertisements peeled from tiled walls. A dead station clock hung above tracks filled with black water. A black SUV waited beside a service ramp. Claire stopped again. "You knew I was going live tonight." "I knew at 6:12 this evening. My source contacted me at 6. At 6:11, a tracking signal activated inside the files." Dante took the folder from beneath her arm. He removed one sheet and held it beneath the emergency light. At first Claire saw nothing. Then he tilted the paper. A translucent strip had been embedded between two layers. "That isn't possible," she said. "It is expensive." "Not impossible." One of his men opened a small metal case and passed Dante a scanner. A red light pulsed beneath the page. The signal blinked every 4 seconds. Claire stared at the file she had carried into her newsroom, through security, past dozens of employees. A beacon, not evidence, a target. "Whoever followed that signal knew exactly where I was sitting," she said, "and exactly when the broadcast would begin." Claire thought of her federal source, a nervous man who had refused to give his real name. He had worn gloves. He had insisted she wait until 11 before releasing anything. Her stomach turned. Dante snapped the device between his fingers and dropped the pieces into the water. "Get in the car." Claire remained still. "If you've protected Lily, prove it. I am taking you to her. No more shadows, no more commands. Tell me where she is." Something dark moved across Dante's face. "Safe house on the north side, address." "No, then I'm not moving." His men glanced toward him. Claire understood the danger of embarrassing a man like Dante in front of his soldiers. She also understood that obedience would make her useless. Dante approached slowly. The station seemed to contract around him. "You think refusing me proves you are not afraid." "I am afraid." That stopped him. Claire lifted her chin. "I'm terrified, but fear does not make you trustworthy." For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then Dante reached into his coat and handed her a small silver key. "Lakeview, building owned through Carina Holdings. Apartment 6. Claire recognized the company name. Carina Holdings owned her apartment building. She looked up sharply. No, Dante's expression remained unreadable. "You bought my building?" 8 months ago. "Why?" "Because Daniel's men installed a camera across from your bedroom window." The station fell silent. Claire searched his face for triumph, manipulation, anything that would make the answer easier to hate. She found only restrained anger. "You replaced the locks," she said. "Yes, the security system. Yes, the maintenance staff. Yes, a memory surfaced. A quiet doorman appearing after midnight, whenever she returned from the station. A new security camera above her floor. A black sedan she had seen twice in the rain. You were watching me. I was keeping you alive without telling me. If I had told you, you would have investigated me. I already was." For the first time, the corner of Dante's mouth moved. Not a smile, something colder and more tired. "Yes," he said, "every night." One of his men touched an earpiece. "Boss," Dante turned. The man's face had changed. "We intercepted a call on Cole's old federal channel." Claire's pulse jumped. The man activated the speaker. Static filled the abandoned station. Then a voice emerged, warm, controlled, familiar enough to break something inside her. "Claire," Daniel Cole said, "if Dante has you, do not believe a word he tells you." She could not breathe. Dante watched her carefully as the voice of her dead fiancé continued. "He killed Lily once already. Don't let him do it again." Daniel's voice disappeared into static. Claire stood motionless beside the black SUV, the abandoned platform tilting beneath her feet. For 2 years, she had replayed his last voicemail whenever grief became unbearable. She knew every pause in his breathing, every measured inflection, every trace of warmth he had used when saying her name. The voice on the intercepted channel was Daniel, alive. Dante took the phone from his man and ended the transmission. Claire turned on him. What did he mean when he said Lily was killed once already? "He wants you frightened enough to stop thinking." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer I have until we reach the safe house." Claire lunged for the phone. Dante caught her wrist before she touched it. His grip was controlled, but there was no mistaking the strength in it. Let go. Listen to me. You have lied since the moment you entered that studio. I told you Lily was alive. You also watched me for months, bought my home, and built an escape tunnel beneath my newsroom. His gaze lowered briefly to where his fingers circled her wrist. Then he released her. You may hate everything I have done after you see her, he said. But you will see her. That promise was the only reason Claire entered the SUV. The windows were dark enough to turn Chicago into a blur of fractured neon and rain. Dante sat opposite her, while two vehicles escorted them through service roads beneath the city. Claire watched every turn, north through the tunnel, east beneath the river, then up a private ramp behind an abandoned warehouse. You are memorizing the route, Dante said. I memorize everything. I know. The answer came too quickly. Claire stared at him. How much do you know about me? His expression closed. Enough to understand that silence makes you more dangerous than anger. The convoy emerged onto Lower Walker Drive. Rain hammered the roof. Concrete pillars passed like prison bars beneath yellow lights. Claire looked at the silver key in her palm, Carina Holdings. Dante had bought her building 8 months ago. Daniel had supposedly died 24 months ago. Why did you wait so long to protect me? I did not. Her head lifted. Dante looked through the window. The first man assigned to you began 18 months ago. Claire remembered a homeless veteran who had appeared outside the station every night that winter. She had bought him coffee twice. In spring, he vanished. He was yours. Yes. The woman who worked at the bookstore across from my apartment? Yes. The delivery driver who kept bringing packages to the wrong floor? Yes. Claire felt suddenly exposed, as though the walls of her life had been made of glass. You put people around me before you knew Daniel was watching. Dante's eyes returned to hers. I knew someone was watching. And you assumed it was Daniel. I hoped it was. The cruelty of the answer struck her. Because if Daniel were alive, Dante could find him. Because Claire had been useful. The SUV turned into an underground garage beneath a renovated brownstone. Dante exited first. His men searched the stairwell before allowing Claire to move. Apartment 6 occupied the entire upper floor. The door opened before Dante reached it. A young woman stood beneath the warm light of the hallway. Her hair was shorter than in the video. Her face was thinner. A pale scar crossed her left eyebrow, but she was alive. Claire, the world went quiet. Claire crossed the hallway without feeling her feet touch the floor. Lily ran toward her. They collided hard enough to strike the wall. Claire wrapped both arms around her sister, one hand gripping the back of Lily's sweater, as if someone might tear her away again. Lily began crying first. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Claire could not answer. She pressed her face into Lily's hair and breathed in soap, coffee, and the faint floral perfume Lily had worn since college. Real, warm, alive. When Claire finally pulled back, she held Lily's face between both hands. Why didn't you call me? Lily's relief collapsed into shame. Because Daniel said he would kill you. Claire went still. Behind them, Dante closed the door. Lily looked past Claire toward him. You brought her here. Dante removed his wet coat. She forced the timetable. She usually does. The familiarity between them cut through Claire's relief. You know him, she said. Lily glanced toward Dante again. He found me the night Daniel tried to move me out of Chicago. Claire's voice weakened. Daniel took you. He said he was protecting me. At first I believed him. They moved into the living room. The safe house was elegant but impersonal, with reinforced windows, hidden cameras, and 2 armed guards stationed beyond the kitchen. Lily sat beside Claire on a grey sofa. Daniel didn't die in that garage, she said. The body was someone else. The records were changed before you identified him. Claire remembered the sealed coffin, the damaged face, Daniel's watch beneath a plastic evidence cover. You told police you saw him murdered. I saw a man shot beside Daniel's car. Before I could reach him, Daniel's agents grabbed me. Why? Because I had seen him meeting with men from the mayor's office. He was moving seized federal money into private accounts. Claire's mind began assembling the pieces, the anonymous sources, the missing evidence. The officials Daniel had encouraged her to investigate before his death. He built my case against Dante. Lily nodded. He needed a respected journalist to publish it. If you destroyed Dante publicly, Daniel could take control of the people and businesses. Dante held together. Claire turned toward the man standing near the window. Dante did not look victorious, only grim. Your brother, Claire said. Daniel killed him. Dante's face became unreadable. Marco discovered Daniel was selling federal protection to rival families. So this is revenge. It began that way. The words settled between them. Claire looked back at Lily. What does that mean? Lily's eyes filled with dread. Dante knew Daniel would come back for you. Claire rose slowly. And he let him. Dante stepped away from the window. I needed Daniel to believe you were unprotected. You surrounded me with your men, close enough to intervene, far enough to remain invisible. The truth arrived with terrible clarity. The surveillance, the purchased building, the planted security. Not merely protection, a trap. Claire's voice turned cold. You used me as bait. Dante held her gaze. Yes, Lily stood between them. But he changed the plan. Claire looked at her sister. When? Lily swallowed. The night Daniel ordered his men to take you from your apartment. Claire remembered nothing unusual about that night except the sudden fire alarm at 2 a.m. and the black sedan that had followed her to a hotel. Dante had moved her without her ever knowing. Lily continued quietly. He could have followed Daniel's men and found their headquarters. Instead, he stopped them before they reached you. Claire looked at Dante. You gave up your chance to catch him. His expression remained hard. I made a tactical decision. Lily shook her head. No, you made it, because you couldn't stand the thought of them touching her. Dante's eyes flashed toward Lily, a warning, but Claire had already seen it. The first fracture in his control. Then one of the safe house monitors began to beep. A live camera feed appeared on the wall. Claire's apartment bedroom filled the screen. A man wearing Daniel Cole's face stood beside her bed. He looked directly into the hidden camera and smiled. Then he lifted a framed photograph of Claire and Dante, taken less than an hour earlier outside the television station. On the back, written in red ink, were 6 words. You were never supposed to love her. For the first time since entering the safe house, Dante looked afraid. Not for himself, for what Claire had just seen. Daniel stood inside her bedroom, holding the photograph like a man presenting evidence in court. The image had been taken outside the television station, less than an hour earlier. Claire remembered the rain, Dante's hand against her back, his body positioned between her and the street. Someone had been close enough to photograph them. Someone had followed every move. Daniel turned the picture over again. You were never supposed to love her. Then the feed went black. Claire faced Dante. Is it true? He did not pretend to misunderstand. Lily stepped away from them, suddenly aware that this question had nothing to do with surveillance or strategy. Dante looked toward one of his men. Trace the camera access. Already trying. Lock down every property connected to Carina Holdings. The man left the room. Claire moved closer. Look at me, Dante did. She saw control rebuilding behind his eyes, each emotion sealed away before it could reach his face. That message was for you, she said. Yes, Daniel thinks you love me. He thinks emotion is a weakness. That isn't what I asked. Dante's jaw tightened. This is not the time. It is exactly the time. Because I need to know whether every decision you made was part of some plan or whether you lost control of it. His gaze sharpened. You want honesty. I have wanted it since you walked into my newsroom. Dante stepped closer until only inches remained between them. I watched you accuse me of crimes I committed and crimes I did not. I listened to you speak about your sister, as if grief had not hollowed you out. I watched you refuse protection from judges, police officers, and federal agents because you believed dependence was another form of captivity. Claire's breath caught. He continued more quietly. I knew the hour you left work, which coffee shop you used when you could not sleep, which route you took home when it rained. I knew you kept Daniel's last voicemail because you played it every Thursday at midnight. The room seemed to disappear around them. Claire had never told anyone about Thursdays. That was the night Daniel had proposed. How? She whispered. Your phone was compromised before my people reached it, and you listened. Yes. Anger rose, but beneath it was something more dangerous. You invaded every part of my life. I kept Daniel from reaching it. You don't get to call surveillance protection just because you were the lesser threat. Dante almost touched her face. His hand lifted, stopped beside her cheek, then fell. I know. The admission unsettled her, more than denial would have. Lily approached carefully. We still need to understand why Daniel sent that message now. Claire forced herself to turn back toward the investigation. He wants Dante emotionally unstable. He wants me predictable, Dante corrected. Claire looked at the dead screen. Then the apartment was a performance. Yes, Daniel had allowed them to see him. That meant the bedroom was not his target. It was a clue. Claire replayed the image in her mind. Daniel beside the bed, the photograph, the writing, her desk visible in the background. One drawer slightly open. My notebooks. Dante frowned. What? I kept handwritten copies of every source conversation in a false drawer beneath my desk. You told no one? Only Daniel knew. Dante immediately called his men. Search the apartment. No one touches the desk until we arrive. You're not going there, Lily said. Claire was already reaching for Dante's coat. Yes, I am, Dante blocked her path. Daniel wants you there. Then he left something he needs me to find. He may have left an explosive. He may have left proof. No. Claire looked up at him. You used me as bait for nearly 2 years. You do not get to become protective only when the risk becomes personal. The words landed. Dante's face hardened, but he moved aside. 20 minutes later, they entered Claire's apartment behind a tactical team. The rooms looked untouched. A lamp glowed beside the sofa. Rain pressed silver lines against the windows. Her coffee cup from that morning remained beside the sink. Only the bedroom felt wrong. The photograph was gone. The drawer beneath her desk stood open. Claire knelt and removed the false panel. Her notebooks were still there. On top of them lay a black flash drive. Dante crouched beside her. Do not connect it here. Claire turned it over. A small gold seal had been etched into the plastic, the emblem of the Chicago mayor's office. Lily stood in the doorway. Daniel said the mayor was only a client. He lied. Claire said. The mayor financed the network. A noise sounded in the hall. Dante pulled Claire behind him as one of his men opened fire toward the entrance. The apartment lights shattered. Darkness swallowed the room. Claire heard glass break, boots moving, furniture overturning. Then Dante's hand found hers. He pulled her through the bedroom toward the fire escape while his men held the hallway. On the landing, cold rain struck Claire's face. Across the alley, a rifle sight flashed from a rooftop. Dante saw it before she did. He drove her against the brick wall and covered her completely as the shot struck metal beside them. Claire felt his breath against her temple. His heart was beating hard, not calm now, not controlled. Dante. He looked down at her as if checking that every part of her still existed. Another shot rang out. He dragged her down the iron stairs, keeping his body between hers and the rooftop until they reached the waiting SUV. Only after the doors locked did Claire notice blood running from his shoulder. You're hurt. It passed through. You need a hospital. No hospitals. Lily pressed cloth against the wound while the convoy accelerated into the rain. Claire still held the flash drive. Dante watched it from across the vehicle. That is what Daniel wanted you to take. Then why try to kill me? He did not. Claire looked at him. The shots forced us toward the fire escape. Dante said. The shooter could have killed you from that distance. A terrible thought formed. He wanted us to leave together. Dante nodded once. Claire examined the gold emblem again. Where can we open this without being traced? Dante hesitated. There is a private room beneath my club. Lily went pale. The one where Marco died. Dante's expression changed. Claire looked between them. What is on that drive? Lily answered before Dante could stop her. The last recording made by Dante's brother, and according to Daniel, it proved Dante had ordered his own brother's death. The entrance to Dante's club was hidden beneath a shuttered bank on Wabash Avenue. Rain turned the street into black glass as Claire followed him through a steel door. Below, an underground ballroom glowed with candles and violet light. Politicians, financiers, and men with armed escorts drank beneath mirrored ceilings. No one looked directly at Dante. Everyone noticed the blood on his shirt. He guided Claire toward a private corridor, one hand at her back. Daniel's accountant is here, he said. Elias Ward. He carries the key needed to unlock the drive. And he will speak to me? He will if he believes you chose my protection. You mean if he believes I'm your woman? Dante's expression tightened. That lie may keep you alive. Try to look convincing. His hand shifted to her waist. Better? He asked. More threatening. To everyone else, that is convincing. They entered the room where Marco had died. A photograph of Dante and his younger brother hung above the table. Marco was laughing. Dante looked as though he had already learned not to. The wound in Dante's shoulder was still bleeding. Claire opened a medical cabinet. Sit, I have people for that, none of them are here. He obeyed. Claire cut the fabric away and cleaned the wound. Dante did not flinch until her fingers brushed the back of his neck. You could have followed Daniel's men the night they came for me, she said. Yes, you might have found him. Yes, why stop them? Dante stared at the wall. I imagined you waking in a room where no one answered your questions. I decided finding Daniel was less important than preventing that. That sounds personal. It was a tactical failure. She stitched the wound. When she finished, Dante caught her wrist. His thumb rested over her pulse. For several seconds, neither moved. Then someone knocked. Elias Ward entered in a silver dinner jacket. His smile faded when he saw Claire. The journalist. I heard she hated you. She changed her mind, Dante said. Elias looked between them. Claire stepped beside Dante and placed her palm against his chest. I learned who was really hunting me. Dante covered her hand with his. Elias gave a nervous laugh. Daniel said she would never trust you. Daniel miscalculated, Claire replied. She showed him the gold seal on the drive. Elias denied recognizing it, but his gaze moved toward the computer. Dante noticed. I can open it, Elias admitted. But Cole will know. He already knows, Claire said. Elias entered a code. Files filled the monitor. Payments to city officials, safe house addresses, and recordings from the year Marco died. One video showed Marco entering the room with evidence against Daniel. A younger Dante followed. You met with Cole, Dante said in the recording. He promised protection, Marco answered. Our uncle is selling names. The image jumped. A shot sounded. Marco fell, and Dante's recorded voice said, Clean this up, no one learns what he found. The footage ended. Claire looked at Dante. Did you kill him? No. There's a cut, Elias said. 27 seconds. Before Claire could question him, Elias reached beneath his jacket. Dante slammed him against the wall and pressed a weapon beneath his jaw. Claire stepped between them. Don't, he came armed. So did everyone in this building. Elias stared at her. Cole was right, you can control him. Dante's face hardened. No one controls me. Not yet, Elias whispered. An alarm sounded outside. Elias struck Dante's injured shoulder and escaped. Dante's men chased him through the ballroom. Claire searched the remaining files. One folder contained recordings of her broadcasts. In each, her face glowed from a television. Inside Danton's dark penthouse, he had saved every report, every accusation. Every night she had spoken Lily's name. Claire turned. Why? At first, I studied your investigation. And later, Dante looked at her as though the truth angered him. Later, your voice was the only thing in my home that did not ask me for blood. The ballroom doors opened. Elias ran between the tables, but a man blocked his path and took the drive key from his hand. Daniel Cole, alive, dressed in a black tuxedo. Claire stepped into the ballroom before Dante could stop her. Daniel smiled as cameras rose around him. Claire, Dante pulled her against his side. Whispers spread, phones turned toward them. Daniel gestured toward the screen above the stage. A recording began. Dante's voice filled the club. Leave Claire Bennett unprotected. When Cole comes for her, follow him. If she has to be taken, let it happen. Claire stared at Dante. She is the bait. Daniel is the target. Dante reached for her, but Claire stepped away. All around them, cameras captured the distance opening between their bodies. Daniel raised his glass. Now, he said, ask him when the plan changed. Claire heard the recording again inside her head. If she has to be taken, let it happen. Dante stood 6 feet away, surrounded by men who feared him, while Daniel watched from the center of the ballroom with the satisfaction of a prosecutor presenting his final witness. When did the plan change? Claire asked. Dante's eyes never left hers. The night they entered your apartment. That was 8 months ago. Yes. You watched me for 10 months before deciding I was worth saving. A flicker crossed his face. Daniel smiled. Careful, Claire, he may tell you it was love. Dante turned toward him. The entire room seemed to tense. Daniel lifted one hand. Several guests drew weapons beneath their jackets. Others moved toward the exits, suddenly aware that the gala beneath the abandoned bank had become a battlefield. Claire stepped between the two men. No one fires, Daniel laughed softly. You still think truth controls men like us? No, she said. Evidence does. She held up the flash drive. Daniel's smile vanished. Claire had taken it from the computer before leaving the private room. She did not know how much data had copied onto it, but Daniel did not know that either. Every account, she said, every official, every payment. Dante understood immediately. His voice became cold. If she does not leave this building unharmed, the files go to every newsroom in the city. Daniel studied them. You trust him to release evidence that destroys his empire? Claire looked at Dante. No, I trust him to destroy anything that threatens me. The words came before she could stop them. Something dangerous changed in Dante's expression. Daniel saw it too. Then the lights went out. The first shot shattered the mirror above the bar. Dante reached Claire before the glass fell. He pulled her against his chest and drove them behind a marble column as the ballroom erupted. Stay with me, he ordered. I am not one of your soldiers. No, you are the reason they are shooting. He caught her hand and moved through the darkness. His men formed a wall around them, guiding guests toward an emergency exit. Daniel disappeared behind the stage as smoke flooded the room. Claire heard Elias shouting that the tunnels had been compromised. Dante changed direction. Where are we going? Roof. They climbed a service staircase while alarms screamed below. Halfway up, a masked man appeared on the landing. Dante fired once. The man dropped out of sight. Claire froze. Dante turned back, his face unreadable. You knew what I was. Knowing is different from seeing. I will not apologize for keeping you alive. She hated that part of her understood. They reached the roof beneath violent rain. A helicopter waited beyond the helipad, its blades beginning to turn. Before they could cross, an explosion shook the building. The stairwell door blew outward. Dante threw Claire to the ground and covered her as metal fragments tore across the roof. Pain flashed through his face. His injured shoulder had reopened. You're bleeding again. Run! They reached the helicopter, but Dante's pilot shouted that the fuel line had been damaged. Black SUVs were already flooding the street below. Daniel had sealed every exit. Dante pulled Claire toward the far edge of the roof, where a maintenance platform hung above an adjacent parking structure. You cannot be serious, she said. It is 12 feet. It is 4 stories down. Look at me." Rain ran across his face. For once, he did not look like a mafia boss. He looked like a man trying not to imagine her falling. "I will jump first," he said. "You follow, and if I miss, you will not." "How do you know?" "Because I will catch you." He crossed the gap and landed hard on the opposite platform. Claire looked down at the street. Then at Dante he held out both hands. Gunfire struck the concrete behind her. Claire jumped. For one endless second there was nothing beneath her. Then Dante caught her. The impact drove him to one knee, but he did not let go. His arms locked around her as if the world could collapse, and he would still keep her suspended above it. Their faces were inches apart. "You caught me," she whispered. "I always will." The words stunned them both. Dante released her too quickly. They descended through the parking structure and entered a waiting sedan, driven by one of his men. Lily was already inside. She pulled Claire into her arms. "I thought Daniel had you." He almost did. The sedan accelerated into the rain. Dante sat beside the window. One hand pressed to his shoulder. Blood darkened his shirt. Claire moved closer and replaced his hand with hers. He looked down at her fingers. "You should hate me." "I do." "Good, but not enough to let you bleed to death." For the first time, his mouth almost softened. The moment ended when the driver announced that the Lakeview safe house had been breached. Dante's expression hardened instantly. "Take us to the church." Lily went pale. "What church?" "A property Daniel does not know." Claire looked at him. "Does such a place exist?" Dante did not answer. They entered an abandoned church near the river. Candlelight replaced electricity. His men secured the doors while Claire cleaned his wound near the altar. Dante's breathing changed when she touched him, not from pain. "Why did you save me?" she asked quietly. "You already know. I know you changed the plan. I do not know why." His hand closed around the edge of the pew. "Because when I imagined Daniel taking you, I could not breathe." Claire stopped. Dante looked at her then, every defense stripped from his face. "I told myself it was strategy, then necessity, then guilt, and now." He lifted his hand toward her cheek. Before his fingers touched her, a phone began ringing somewhere beneath the altar. Dante went still. "Only 3 people knew that number," he answered. Daniel's voice echoed through the church. "Tell Claire the rest." Dante's face turned cold. Claire stared at him. "What rest?" Daniel laughed softly through the speaker. "The part where Dante knew I was alive before you ever began investigating him." The abandoned church seemed to hold its breath. Claire stared at Dante across the candlelit altar, while Daniel's voice lingered through the phone. "Dante knew I was alive before you ever began investigating him." Claire waited for Dante to deny it. He did not. "End the call," Dante told Daniel. "You first," Daniel replied. "Tell her why she chose you as her target." The line went dead. Claire slowly lowered the phone. What did he mean? Dante's men remained near the church doors, pretending not to listen. Lily stood several feet away, her expression already carrying the answer. Claire did not want. Dante removed the blood-soaked bandage from his shoulder. 2 years ago, Daniel began transferring evidence through reporters. "Through me?" "Yes. And you knew. I knew someone inside the Justice Department was directing your investigation. You knew it was Daniel." "I suspected. That is not what he said." Dante looked at her. "I confirmed he was alive 9 months before your first report about me." The betrayal arrived quietly. Claire remembered every source who had approached her, every document she had trusted, every sleepless night spent believing she was building a case against the man who had destroyed her family. Dante had watched it happen. "You could have told me. You would not have believed me. You never gave me the choice. If Daniel knew I had contacted you, he would have disappeared. So you let me continue." "Yes, because I was useful." Dante's silence was answer enough. Claire stepped back. He reached for her, then stopped. "I needed Daniel exposed, and I needed my sister. I was trying to find her. You were trying to avenge Marco." His face hardened. "At first," Claire laughed once bitterly. There it is again at first. Everything cruel becomes acceptable because you changed your mind later. I never said it was acceptable. No, you just expect me to survive it. Lily moved closer. Claire, Dante did save me, and then hid you, to keep Daniel from finding me. Claire looked at her sister. You let me believe you were dead. Tears filled Lily's eyes. I thought it was the only way to keep you alive. Claire turned away from both of them. Daniel had manipulated her grief. Dante had weaponized it. Even Lily had participated in the silence. The people who claimed to protect her had built a prison out of secrets and called it love. One of Dante's men approached with a tablet. The mayor's gala begins in 40 minutes. Daniel has been added to the guest list under federal protection. Claire looked at the screen. The gala would be broadcast live from the Grand Meridian Hotel. Every major donor, judge, and city official connected to the financial network would be present. Daniel was not hiding anymore. He was taking control publicly. He wants us there, Claire said. Dante nodded. He believes the evidence on the drive is incomplete. Is it? Yes. Claire looked at him sharply. The missing files are stored beneath the gala ballroom, he continued. The mayor keeps an offline server in the hotel's security vault. Lily shook her head. It is a trap. Claire took Dante's coat from the pew. Then we walk into it. Dante blocked her path. You are not going. She looked up at him. You used my investigation to draw Daniel out. Now that he is standing beneath television cameras, you want me hidden? I want you alive. You want control. His eyes darkened. Those are not always different. They are to me. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Dante stepped aside. The Grand Meridian glittered above the river, its windows reflecting rain and blue police lights. Claire entered the ballroom, wearing a black evening dress Lily had found in the church safe room. Dante walked beside her in a fresh suit, his injured shoulder concealed beneath the jacket. His palm rested against Claire's back. To the cameras, they looked united. To Claire, the touch felt like a confession neither of them deserved to make. Whispers followed them through the crowd, the journalist and the Mafia Boss. Enemies entering together. Daniel stood on stage beside the mayor. He looked exactly as Claire remembered him from the morning he supposedly died. Clean-shaven, controlled, gentle enough to be trusted. Claire, he said into the microphone. I wondered which version of the truth he would give you. Cameras turned toward her. She walked onto the stage. Why did you fake your death? Daniel smiled sadly. To survive Dante. You abducted Lily. I protected her from a criminal empire. You used federal accounts to finance that empire's rivals. I did what was necessary to dismantle him. Claire held up the flash drive. And the judges? The mayor? The stolen public funds? The mayor moved away from Daniel. Daniel's smile disappeared. Then the ballroom screens changed. A recording appeared. Dante, instructing his men to leave Claire exposed. She is the bait. Gasps swept through the room. Daniel faced the cameras. Dante Vescari did not protect Claire Bennett. He built her grief into a trap. Claire looked at Dante. He did not defend himself. That hurt more than the recording, Daniel continued. He knew I was alive. He knew where Lily was being moved. And he allowed Claire to spend 2 years destroying herself because her pain brought him closer to revenge. Claire turned toward Dante. Did you know where Lily was? Not exactly. But you knew Daniel had her, yes. The room vanished around her. You let me bury her. Dante stepped closer. I was trying to reach her without getting you both killed. You do not get to decide which truth I can survive. Claire, she removed his hand from her arm. For the first time, Dante looked less like a feared man than someone watching the only thing he could not replace walk away. Claire descended from the stage and crossed the ballroom alone. Dante did not follow. Outside, rain swept beneath the hotel canopy. A driver opened the rear door of a waiting sedan. Claire took one step toward it. Dante's voice thundered behind her. Claire, stop! She turned. He was running toward her. Pushing through security and guests, the sedan exploded. Heat threw Claire across the pavement. Glass rained through the night. Before she struck the ground, Dante reached her and wrapped his body around hers as the burning car collapsed behind them. The explosion erased the rain. For one breathless moment, Claire heard nothing but a high metallic ringing as flames climbed from the ruined sedan behind her. Then sound returned all at once. Screaming guests, shattering hotel glass, security shouting into radios, Dante's voice close to her ear. "Claire, look at me." She opened her eyes. He was above her, one arm braced against the pavement, the other protecting her head. Blood ran from a cut near his temple, but his gaze moved over her with frantic precision. "Can you breathe?" "Yes." "Where are you hurt?" "I'm not." He did not believe her until his hands had checked her shoulders, ribs and face. The feared man, who had stood silently while she walked away from him, now looked close to breaking apart. Claire touched the blood at his temple. "Dant." He pulled her into his chest, not carefully, desperately, his arms locked around her as fire reflected across the wet pavement. Claire felt his heart hammering beneath the ruined suit. "I watched you disappear," he said against her hair. The confession was barely louder than the rain. Then his control returned. Dante rose and drew Claire behind him as his men surrounded them. The hotel entrance had become chaos. Police vehicles arrived from both directions. Yet Dante did not look relieved. He searched the crowd. "Where is Lily?" Claire turned. Her sister had been standing beside the ballroom doors seconds before the explosion. Now she was gone. They found Lily's phone beneath the hotel canopy. Its screen was cracked, but a live video had already begun playing. Lily sat inside a moving vehicle, her wrists secured in front of her. Daniel was beside her. He looked directly into the camera. "You chose Dante again," he told Claire. "Now he chooses what matters more, his empire or your sister." The video ended with coordinates. An abandoned shipping terminal beside the river. Dante immediately ordered 3 teams to move. "No," Claire said. He looked at her. "Daniel expects your convoy. He wants the city to watch you start a war. He has Lily, and he wants you angry. I am beyond angry." His voice was quiet, which made it more frightening. Claire caught his hand before he could walk away. "Then let me think for both of us." Dante stared at their joined hands. Around them, his men waited. Claire remembered Daniel's obsession with control. He never created one escape route. He created 3, then convinced everyone to watch the obvious one. "The coordinates are false," she said, "or only partly true." Dante's security chief approached with a tablet. "Boss, we have another problem. The mayor has frozen every Vescari account connected to the city. Warehouses, clubs, construction companies, all of it." Dante did not hesitate. "Liquidate the offshore reserve. That reserve funds every allied family. Use it to purchase the shipping terminal and the 6 properties around it." The man stared at him. "That will expose the entire network. Do it." Claire looked at Dante. "You're destroying your own protection." "I am removing Daniel's." Within 15 minutes, Dante surrendered properties worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He abandoned alliances built over decades and released encrypted financial records to rival organizations, forcing every official Daniel controlled to protect themselves instead of him. For Lily, he dismantled the architecture of his empire. Without blinking, they reached a secure command room inside an unfinished riverside tower. Screens showed traffic cameras, harbor feeds, and police channels. Claire studied the terminal map. "Daniel cannot keep Lily near the coordinates after sending them to us." Dante marked 3 surrounding structures. "He needs access to a broadcast signal." Claire looked toward the river. Across from the terminal stood a public television transmission center. "He's taking her there." Danton's men prepared to move, but Claire noticed an archived surveillance clip on one monitor. The date was 8 months earlier. Her apartment building. Daniel's agents entering through a service door. Dante appeared 4 minutes later, alone. He had not waited for his men. In the footage, He dragged one attacker into the hallway and forced the others away from Claire's floor. Then he stood outside her apartment door. For nearly an hour. He never entered. He simply sat against the wall in the rainwater, dripping from his coat. Claire looked at the other recordings. Dante outside her newsroom after a death threat. Dante watching from a car while she visited Lily's empty apartment. Dante ordering his men to abandon Daniel's vehicle because it was turning toward Claire's street. Each time he had come close to catching Daniel, he had chosen her safety instead. "You could have ended this months ago," Claire said. Dante stood behind her. "Yes, but every time Daniel moved near me, you stopped following him." "Yes. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because protection loses its value when it becomes another demand for gratitude." Claire turned. "You still used me." "I did. You still lied." "Yes, and you still believed you had the right to decide for me." His expression tightened. Yes, there was no excuse in his voice, only guilt. Dante took a small drive from inside his jacket and placed it in her palm. "What is this?" "Everything, his private accounts, political payments, names of judges, officers and rival leaders. Evidence sufficient to destroy Daniel and Dante with him." Claire looked up. "You kept this on you, in case I failed to get you out." Before she could answer, every screen changed. Daniel appeared inside the television transmission center. Lily sat beside him beneath studio lights. A countdown glowed behind them. 30 minutes. Daniel smiled into the camera. At midnight, Dante Vescari will stand before Chicago and confess to every crime he has committed. He will surrender the evidence, his organization, and his freedom. Lily fought against her restraints. Daniel placed one hand on her shoulder. If he refuses, Claire loses her sister for the second time. The broadcast ended. Dante looked at the clock. Then he took off his weapon and placed it on the table. Claire understood. "You're going to do it. I am going to give him exactly what he asked for. He'll kill you." Not before the confession. She stepped in front of him. "And after?" Dante lifted his hand toward her face. This time he did not stop. His fingers touched her cheek with unbearable gentleness. "After," he said, "you tell the world the truth." At 11:52, Dante Vescari walked into the television transmission center without a weapon. Claire followed him through the rain. He had ordered her to remain in the command tower. She had waited until his convoy disappeared, then taken a second vehicle with 2 of his men. Dante did not look surprised when she stepped from the SUV. He looked furious. "You were supposed to stay behind." So was Lily. "This is not an investigation anymore." It became personal the moment Daniel used my grief to start a war. Dante moved closer, his voice low enough that his men could not hear. "If something happens inside, you do not come back for me." Claire held up the drive containing his secrets. "You gave me the truth. That means I decide what to do with it." His gaze settled on her face. "You make obedience impossible. You make trust impossible." For one brief second, pain passed through his expression. Then the steel doors opened. The main studio had been transformed into a courtroom. Cameras faced a single chair beneath white lights. Behind it, a giant screen displayed the seal of the Department of Justice. Daniel stood beside the stage in a dark suit, appearing more like the federal prosecutor Claire had loved than the man who had abducted her sister. Lily sat inside the control room behind reinforced glass. A man stood beside her with a weapon. Daniel smiled. "You brought Claire." "She brought herself," Dante said. "She always did confuse recklessness with courage." Claire stepped forward. "And you always confused manipulation with intelligence." Daniel's smile tightened. A red light appeared above the nearest camera. They were live. Across Chicago, scheduled programming disappeared. Danton's face filled every television connected to the network. Daniel gestured toward the chair. "Confess." Dante sat. Claire remained just beyond the cameras, the drive hidden in her hand. Daniel began reading charges: extortion, bribery, illegal surveillance, obstruction, control of city contracts through shell corporations. Dante admitted each one. His voice never trembled. Claire watched the control room monitors. The broadcast signal was being copied to several remote servers. Daniel did not merely want a confession. He wanted an unchangeable public record that would eliminate Dante while leaving his own network untouched. Then Daniel read the final accusation. The murder of Marco Vescari. Dante looked toward him. No. Daniel's expression hardened. You ordered the room cleaned. I concealed the evidence because exposing it would have started a war. You allowed the city to believe you killed your brother. I allowed my enemies to believe it, and Claire. Dante's gaze found hers beyond the lights. I allowed her to believe worse. Daniel turned toward camera 1. There it is. The great Dante Vescari admits that Claire Bennett was nothing more than an instrument in his revenge. Dante rose from the chair. She was never nothing. The words cut through the studio. Daniel gave a quiet laugh. Then tell her what she became. Dante looked at Claire as though no cameras existed. She became the first person whose life mattered more to me than winning. Silence filled the studio. Claire could hear the machines humming behind the walls. Dante continued, I used her investigation. I watched her without permission. I let her believe lies, because they brought me closer to the man who killed my brother. Each admission seemed to cost him something. And when did that change? Daniel asked. The first night your men entered her building. Why? Dante's control finally broke. Because I saw them approaching her door and understood that if they took her, there was no revenge left that would matter. Claire's eyes burned. Behind the glass, Lily stared at her. Daniel stepped closer to Dante. You destroyed an empire for a woman who still does not trust you. Dante did not look away from Claire. She should not trust me. The answer stole her breath. She should know exactly what I am and decide without fear, debt, or obligation. Daniel's hand moved toward his jacket. Claire saw it reflected in the black surface of camera 2. Dante! Daniel drew his weapon. Dante turned as the first shot shattered a studio light. Claire dropped behind a console. Dante's men entered through both doors, but hidden gunmen opened fire from the upper technical walkways. The live cameras continued recording. Daniel ran toward the control room. Claire followed. She reached the reinforced door as Daniel entered the security code. Before it opened, she struck him with the metal drive. He staggered and caught her by the throat. You were supposed to expose him, he hissed. I'm exposing you. Claire pressed the drive into a port beside the door. Every monitor changed. Bank records filled the screens. Federal transfers. Payments authorized by Daniel. Video of Marco confronting him. The missing 27 seconds from the club recording, Daniel shooting Marco. Daniel placing the weapon in Dante's hand. Daniel ordering the cameras erased. The evidence was broadcasting live. Daniel released Claire and reached for the drive. Lily struck the armed guard from behind. The control room door opened. Claire pulled her sister into the studio. Daniel raised his weapon again. This time he aimed at Claire. Dante crossed the distance before she heard the shot. His body struck hers. They fell together beneath the burning studio lights. For a second, Claire thought he had only shielded her. Then she felt warm blood spread across her hands. Dante, his face had gone pale. Across the studio, Daniel was forced to the floor by Dante's men. Police sirens approached outside, called by viewers who had watched the truth unfold in real time. Claire pressed both hands against Dante's chest. Stay with me. His eyes opened slowly. Lily, safe. The evidence, still broadcasting. Only then did relief enter his face. He lifted one blood-covered hand and touched Claire's cheek. I told you I would catch you. Her tears fell onto his fingers. And I told you I decide what happens to the truth. Dante tried to answer, but his eyes closed. Behind them, every confession, every betrayal, and every hidden crime continued streaming live to the city. And for the first time, Claire did not know whether the truth had arrived soon enough to save the man who had sacrificed everything to give it to her. Dante survived the first night. Barely the bullet had entered beneath his ribs and damaged one lung before stopping close to his spine. Surgeons worked for 6 hours, while federal agents filled every hallway of St. Catherine's Hospital. Claire sat outside the operating room, with Dante's blood dried beneath her fingernails. Lily slept against her shoulder. Neither sister spoke about the years that had been stolen from them. Not yet. Some grief was too large to examine, while the person who had returned you to each other was still fighting for his life behind closed doors. At dawn, a surgeon finally approached. "He is alive," she said, "but the next 24 hours will determine everything." Claire closed her eyes. For the first time in 2 years, she prayed without asking for truth. She only asked for him. Daniel Cole was arrested before sunrise. The live broadcast had reached more than 12 million viewers before federal technicians regained control of the signal. Copies of the files spread across news networks, private servers, and international media outlets. Daniel's accounts were frozen. The mayor resigned. 3 judges were taken into custody. Federal officials who had protected Daniel began naming one another before breakfast. By evening, the network he had built from stolen evidence, public money, and fabricated investigations had started consuming itself. But Dante's confession remained part of the broadcast. Claire knew what that meant. He had exposed Daniel by destroying himself. When Dante opened his eyes 2 days later, Claire was sitting beside his bed. Machines surrounded him. Police officers waited beyond the glass. His hands were unrestrained, but only because he was too weak to leave. He looked at Claire for several seconds. Lily safe, his eyes closed briefly, and Daniel alive, arrested. Humiliated on every television in America, a faint trace of satisfaction touched Dante's face. Claire leaned closer. "You nearly died, I noticed. You walked into that building, knowing he would shoot you. I knew he might. You planned to confess, even if I never forgave you." Dante looked toward the rain beyond the hospital window. Forgiveness was never part of the agreement. There was no agreement. There was always an agreement. "Claire, you wanted the truth. I wanted you alive." She reached for his hand. He watched her fingers close around his. "You do not get to decide that your life is worth less than mine," she said. "That is not what I decided." "Then, what did you decide?" His gaze returned to her. "That a world without you in it was not one I wanted to control." The words held no charm, no calculated seduction, only exhaustion and truth. Claire wanted to tell him she loved him. The feeling was there, frightening in its depth, but love built inside manipulation could not survive on confession alone. She tightened her grip on his hand. "I believe you." Dante's expression changed. "But belief is not trust," she continued, "and trust is not forgiveness. I know. If there is ever anything between us, it cannot begin with surveillance. Protection I did not choose, or secrets you believe I am too fragile to survive." His thumb moved weakly across her knuckles. "You are the least fragile person I have ever known. Then stop treating me like something you have to lock away." Before he could answer, the door opened. A federal prosecutor entered with 2 agents and a sealed document. The government offered Dante a choice: stand trial publicly and expose every remaining member of his organization, creating a war that could leave hundreds dead, or enter a classified cooperation agreement, surrender his assets, dismantle the Vescari network, and disappear into permanent protection. Dante read the document once. Then he looked at Claire. She understood before he spoke. "You're leaving. If I stay, the families who remain will use you and Lily to reach me. You promised not to make choices for me. This one is not about what you can survive. Then what is it about?" His eyes held hers. "What I refuse to make you survive." Claire wanted to argue. Instead, she saw the truth. Dante was not choosing power. He was abandoning it. 3 days later, he disappeared from the hospital. No farewell, no final touch, only a black envelope beneath Claire's chair. Inside was the deed to her apartment building, transferred jointly to Claire and Lily. There were no hidden companies, no security contracts, and no conditions. A handwritten note rested beneath it. You were right. Protection without choice is another kind of prison. I am learning how to open the door. 6 months later, Claire returned to television. Her investigation into Daniel's network won national awards, though she refused every interview that tried to turn Dante into either a monster or a tragic hero. Lily began working with a trauma organization, helping federal witnesses rebuild their identities. They spoke every Sunday. They did not waste time anymore. On a cold November evening, Claire sat beneath the studio lights, preparing to deliver the final report in her series. Camera 2 turned red. Tonight, she began, we examine what happens after powerful men fall, and whether the systems that protected them truly change. Every screen in the newsroom went black. Claire stopped breathing. The staff began shouting. Technicians rushed toward the control room. Then a single line appeared across the monitor in front of her. Rooftop, come alone. Claire removed her microphone and walked out before anyone could stop her. Rain fell lightly over Chicago. A man stood near the edge of the rooftop, facing the city. No guards, no black SUVs, no tailored armor of men and weapons around him. Dante turned. He looked thinner. A scar disappeared beneath the collar of his dark coat. His eyes were still dangerous, but the loneliness inside them was no longer hidden. You shut down my broadcast again, Claire said. I asked politely this time. You hacked a television station. I am still learning. She stopped several feet away. Are you free? No. Are you safe? Not entirely. Are you staying? Dante looked at the skyline. The agreement allows me one night before they move me again. Pain moved through her. So this is goodbye. It was supposed to be. He took something from his pocket. Not a diamond, not a family ring, a small brass key. The house is on the coast, so said it. It has no cameras, no guards, and no rooms you cannot enter. Claire stared at the key. What are you offering me? Nothing you owe me. Rain gathered in Dante's hair. His voice lowered. I spent my life believing love meant identifying every threat before it reached the door. You taught me that sometimes love means standing outside and waiting to be invited in. Claire looked at the man who had once controlled half the city. Now he stood before her with no empire, no protection, and no certainty that she would choose him. She crossed the distance slowly. Dante did not touch her. He waited. Claire placed her hand against his chest, over the scar where he had taken the bullet meant for her. I still do not forgive everything, she whispered. I would not trust you if you did. I may never become the woman who follows orders. I am counting on it, and if you ever put another camera outside my bedroom, I will confess before the next broadcast. A laugh escaped her, broken by tears. Then Claire took the key. Dante's control disappeared. He pulled her into his arms beneath the rain, holding her not as property, not as protection, and not as the bait that had led him toward revenge. He held her as the only future he had never believed he deserved. Below them, Chicago glittered with the ruins of the empire they had destroyed together. Above them, the studio screens came back to life, but Claire did not return to the broadcast. For once, the truth could wait. Dante had finally come back without secrets standing between them. And this time, Claire was the one who opened the door.